Hi, beautiful souls. This is Sadhana, and welcome to my channel. Welcome back to my subscribers. Thank you for being here today. We are going to have a look at the color of the Tarot of the Magical Forest today, the beautiful artwork by Leo Tang. Until you actually have this deck in your hands, you can't really understand about the effect and the power of the color palette that is included in this deck. And I've taken a few of the different palettes and just spread them out for you here on the table. There's other ones that we'll have a look at throughout this video, but I just wanted to bring your awareness to that. And when a deck has this strength of color, I think it really can be brought to your advantage in reading and working with the deck. Next thing I want to say is to thank you to Kelly Bear, who has spoken about this deck over and over and over again, and is not a deck that I would have picked up if she hadn't been so insistent about this being such a perfect deck for such a variety of clients. And the thing for me about this deck is definitely going to be the color and working with the chakras and working with the subtleties in the messages that can be revealed through color. So let's get started on this little color journey. And if you do work with color, whether it's through fashion or through makeup or through, if you're a healer, if you're a yogi and you work with the chakras, or you have crystal work that you do, please let me know in the comments below so we can kind of open up this conversation. I just think there's just really something magical about this magical forest that has been overlooked. And I scoured YouTube looking for videos to see if anybody had discussed this. And as far as I know, they haven't. So let's just really open up this discussion and see what is revealed in the Tarot of the Magical Forest through the use of color. So I thought we would start, let's just start with yellow, because I believe the greatest number of cards in this deck either have yellow as an entire background, or there is some, use of yellow either in the top or the bottom of the card. And what I'd like to draw your attention to is where the color appears in the card. So is it in the background? Is it in the foreground? Is it closer to the sky? Is it on the ground? And then also there's quite a range. So I'm also going to pull in some other cards here. You can see a bit of pink here. So all of the cards are not just one color. Of course, you're going to see many different colors in a deck, but there's definitely cards that have a dominant color theme going on. You would expect, or I would expect, that these cards, the majority of them, would be in the suit of fire, just because of the energy, the color of the sun. But if you can catch a glimpse here, we have pentacles, we have cups, we have major cards. And so the color is not associated with a suit. So I really want to look at what that kind of energy of yellow brings into these cards here. So the card that's on the top is the Fool. Let's begin with the Fool card, because I think we can have two conversations here. One is the use of yellow in the background. So we're looking at the sun, we're looking at the sense of optimism, and that this fool's journey, while it may be a fool's journey, there is a sense of hope and support, divine support, through that support of the energy of the sun. And I think if we look to the color yellow, we really need to look to not only personal will, but also divine will, and bringing that color yellow into balance, bringing everything that's related into the Manipura chakra. The solar plexus chakra is about really finding that blend of my will versus thy will. And then he decides to color the mountains. So they're not green, they're not exactly blue, they're this beautiful purple color, which I would generally associate with either the third eye chakra or the crown chakra, so the Agnya chakra or the Sahasrara chakra. And so we have this very divine, high frequency color down here on the bottom. So we have this high frequency purple supported by the energy of the yellow. And this really, to me, speaks to being a journey that you really don't have a choice to take. This is your divine path. It's your divine purpose. You are supported by the energy of spirit. And I just think it's a really beautiful, beautiful use of color. All right, so let's go to I just pulled a few wand cards here, so you can see that there are wand cards that do have yellow, but it's quite a range of yellow and browns. And depending on the mood of the card, it's going to be a little bit darker or a little bit brighter. And surprisingly, this card to me here, which is connected to not only happiness, but foundation, is quite a soft color of yellow. So it's quite a very muted yellow, you know, compared to the energy here of the Eight of Wands. But if we look into the card, the other dominant color that I see is green. So we have the greenery up here and the greenery down below, which to me, I'm going to associate with probably most of the greens in this deck with the heart chakra. There may be other associations to the earth as well, just to the earth element, but I'm going to really draw in that kind of chakra energy to help you understand what I see in these cards. So this is beautiful card within the palette of the yellows, showing that sense of fire and energy of the wands, but also bringing in the green and making that connection to the heart, which is very much what this card is about. So not only does it represent foundation, but it represents a foundation in the strength of family and all that we need to, you know, keep that really sense of the trust within the heart space. And I may be going out on a limb there, but that just really speaks to me. Suit of Wands is primarily the color of yellow. So we can associate the element of fire with the Suit of Wands, and also the idea with passion and creativity and initiating new projects and things like that with the color yellow. You've also got quite an intense yellow here. So as the passion, as the intensity increases, so does the color of yellow. And as the pace slows down, I think you're going to see a little bit more brown in the deck. You can see here, when the burden becomes a little too heavy, the yellow begins to fade and it's not quite as bright. And here's some other wand cards. So just have a look at the different intensity and the different mood of the yellow colors. Here's a good example here. So you've got the 5, which is quite a dark color, but then we've got a little bit lighter yellow in the 6 of Wands for the success card. I also want to comment that this is my interpretation, and I have no idea if the artist Leo Tang had a similar intention or not. But there's certain things, I think, from the use of color, whether it was intended by the artist or not, comes out through at a very subtle level, and it may or may not really help us to facilitate an aspect of the reading that we wouldn't see if the color hadn't presented itself. And perhaps in certain days, in certain ways, it will present itself differently. So these cards here, this is a different day, by the way. Sorry, I had to stop the video and get on with other things. So these 9 cards here are the 9 cards of the wands that are predominantly yellow, gold. Except for this one here, I might actually put this into a different group. That was the one with the 5 of Wands that really kind of showed that brown color. And again, brown I do associate with more the root chakra, or if you want to go to the Earth Star chakra, but that whole idea, just the general concept of everything that the lessons of the root chakra represent. And primarily that's going to come from fear. And so when we have a sense of fear, I'm just wondering if that brown color is going to present itself in other cards. And I can answer my question directly. It's a darker color, so in some cards it will represent an aspect of that, but it doesn't tend to show up that way in this deck so far that I've been able to see. Okay, so these are the 9 wands that are kind of yellowish, and I will show you the other 5 in a moment. We have a selection of major cards that are predominantly yellow, and these are them here. So that's 6 majors that have a whole bunch of yellow, and I don't know what majors you would expect to be predominantly yellow. Of course, the sun is on the top. It's such a pretty sun card. We looked at the Fool earlier, and so other than those 2 cards, what do we have here that has this sunny kind of countenance, right? They're so yellow, they're so bright, they're so optimistic. Why is Justice yellow, right? What is it about Justice that needs that yellow bright color? And I don't know if you're gonna pick up on that in a reading or not, because for me the Justice card is about karmic balance, and either something, the neighboring cards are going to alert you to, what needs to come into balance or what is coming into balance. And in a more optimistic way, I would say, yeah, I could probably use the yellow in this card, but the other ones are strength, which makes sense because this is a very fiery card, right? Lots of that kind of energy. Also, this card is connected to the astrological symbol of Leo. But the other 2 cards that have a lot of yellow are Judgment and Temperance. And we have the little lammy on Judgment and Temperance, and the little lamb is also makes an appearance in this Strength card. And so I'm wondering if there's any connection between the lamb and the sunshine. So that's just something that I'm going to continue to ponder as I work with this deck. On these 3 cards, there's a different color in the foreground than there is in the sky. So the sky is particularly optimistic. And with Temperance, we're really looking at balance. So this makes perfect sense that we have these watery colors down below and the sunny colors above. So that's done beautifully. That's almost, that's a no-brainer. This one completely makes sense. The sunshine, the brightness that we have here in the Judgment card. So this for me is about, there's been several steps along the way through the hero's journey, through the fool's journey, but this one is about unpeeling another layer. And if you are ready, and if you're willing to do that last little bit of work, I see this card as stepping forth and that real kind of unpeeling layer. One of my favorite, actually there's quite a few. When this card is called Awakening, I think that really kind of helps to tap into the energy of this. So there's that possibility of really kind of opening up to the magnificence of this yellow here. So those are the 6 majors that are predominantly yellow color. And then we have 3 pentacles and 3 cups. So the 3 pentacles that are more of an optimistic yellow. I'm going to use that word because there's so many there's lots of other descriptors we can look at. So we have the 6, and we have here the 10, and then we have the page. So these are the 3 more, I'm going to say, cheerful pentacle cards, and we'll look at the other colors in the pentacles and perhaps why the artist chose, or why the artist's perception was that these were the 3 cards that needed that sense of lightness and optimism. And then we have 3 cup cards as well that have a lot of yellow in them, particularly at the top. So it would make sense that the 10, right, the 10 of cups has that that sense of hope and that energy that we receive from the sun. So that kind of works for me. We've also got this kind of earth-centric, and I can't really decide how I'm going to go with the greens in this deck. There's so many different shades of green, and I think that for me in this video to say green means this, I think green is a pretty complex color, and you will sometimes pick up on that hominess, right? The connection to the earth, or you're going to pick up on more of the challenging sides of the heart chakra. Those are the two things that I'm going to work with. We have here lots of pink in this one here. So in the Seven of Cups, we have this yellow up on top and this pink down below, and we haven't really talked about what pink represents in this deck because there's a lot of very, very pink cards. We have the bunnies in the Suit of Cups, which you notice a shift of animals. So here we have the 2 and the 7 and the 10. And so if you were to ask yourself, what are the 2, the 7, and the 10 have in common? Why the yellow? Why the optimism? And we'll come back to that because I want to address the pink shortly. All right, so just going back to the wands for a moment. Here's your 9 wands that are predominantly yellow. And then here's your 5 that have this predominance of watery or greeny blue color. And this, for me, is very, very confusing as a reader. And so I want to bring a little bit of discussion to how this greeny blue kind of plays into what I consider quite an active, passionate, forward-moving suit, right? That's always full of energy. And here we have all this water. And water to me represents the second chakra. So we're looking Swadhisthana chakra. We're looking the kind of a lot of conflicting emotions, moving between opposites, moving between really understanding what it is that we want, desires. Now, passion, fertility is created right in the womb. So let's kind of go there. So we have that whole idea of the pelvic bowl. And this might be going a little too far for some of you, so just bear with me here. So the whole idea of the waters of the womb, right? We have that sense of birthing coming through the waters. And so if subconsciously, unconsciously, or consciously the artist was going there, we can really kind of have a look at that. So are these cards about the creation through a very kind of base and primal level? And what we have in these 5 cards is not quite emerging, or is it tapping into that connection with, we also have the Earth Mother kind of connection. So the home of the divine feminine, when she is well and healthy, rests in the second chakra. So we also have that potential energy to bring in here. And so some of the cards look really a lot more watery than others, and some of them are really moody, and some of them are more cheerful. So we have here the Queen, and I can go with this, right? So she is the Queen of Wands. She has this kind of little bit of sunshine around her, but this is where she lives. She lives in the moodiness of the water of the second chakra. And so that is her element as a queen, as all queens are, is the element of water. So we can also pull in all 4 queens and see if the artist has chosen to bring in the element of water for each of them. So I can answer that question here. So we have Queen of Swords. We've got a little bit of that kind of moodiness here. Don't know why we have this green blotch here. That could just be in the design and the style of the painting. Here is the Queen of Pentacles. So yes, we definitely see that kind of similar color here as with the Queen of Wands, but not in the Queen of Cups. So the Queen of Cups is your double water element, and she is entirely kind of pink and purple. Okay, so let's go back. Let's take the queens out of here. And so the original question was about this greeny blue in the Suit of Wands. So we have the Ace, we have the 2, the 3, and the King. The Ace, the 2, the 3, the King, and the Queen. So this to me these do not look like one cards. The moodiness and all that wateriness just is very challenging to work with. So I think when these 4 cards come up in a reading, that's a really important question to bring in. Is there, or to bring attention to the emotion. Normally in the suit of passion, the suit of fire, the conversation about emotion may or may not come up unless it feels out of whack or out of balance. So there may be a tremendous amount of emotion around the decisions that need to be made when these three cards come up. It just feels so out of balance for me. Like there's very little sunshine, very little fire in any of these cards. So definitely I'm going to have a look at that and address that when that comes up in a reading. So these cards are new to me. This deck's been around for some time, and I'm just fascinated with how this deck is going to read for me, because I'm going to be reading it in perhaps quite a different way than other people, just because of my background with chakra psychology and colors and things like that. So let's have a quick look at some of the, here's one here. So here's some of these darker browns that I was talking about. So this question about, is this root chakra? Does this represent fear? Is there something about this color? And here's two other pentacle cards here, which have kind of a different shade, and we'll talk about those in a sec. So here we have the High Priestess. And here's, sorry, I said these are all pentacles. These are predominantly dark brown colors. So we have the High Priestess and the Hierophant, and we have the Emperor, and we have the Three of Pentacles. And so is there something about these three cards that is shared, and why would the artist choose to paint them with these very similar shades? And so I'm going to go again and really kind of dig down deep and ask if there's any fear about anything related to survival, about moving out on your own, about stepping forward, and about being, being okay to step away from your comfort zone. Those kind of questions are really going to come up for me when I see this color. And those questions may, in another deck, not necessarily arise with these particular cards, because they are not questions you would normally ask with the Hierophant, for example. Like, look at this Hierophant here. So we have the red carpet leading up to the little owl. We have the supplicants here, the little mice. And we have the keys, right? Traditional kind of symbology. This looks like, is this anise, or what herb is this? Anyway, it looks like an herb here, but that's neither here nor there. Why is this so dark behind him? And what are the cards that appear here? There might be something here connecting these dark colors to the, sorry, can't find my words today, to the neighboring cards. Why is he kind of hidden in his, it looks like he's hidden in his cloisters here, or there's something about him that is not being revealed. And in the High Priestess, she looks quite a bit more out in the open, right? She's a lot lighter. So it's like she has stepped forth into the light. So read into that what you want. We do have traditional symbology with a dark and a light pillar. We do have the kind of veil behind her, but this is a lot lighter. And I love how the moon is incorporated here. It's really pretty. Her robes are really, really flowing. There's a sense of ease with her. So all of these things, these are questions that I have. Why does the Emperor look scared out of his mind? I want to know why. Like, what's happened? He does not look like somebody who's about to take charge. He looks very, very fearful of what he's looking at. And that might just be the cuteness and the joy in this deck, is that the characters are fun. And so this video really is about bringing in the color. So it's almost like a dominoes game. So when colors kind of match together and you see things come together, then I'm going to paint them as a story and paint them as a picture, because I think that is going to really It's quite brilliant, actually. Okay, so here's the pinks. I don't want to carry on with this, you know, for too long, because this is a kind of a personal interpretation, and there's lots of different ways you could go with this. But I just, if you hadn't really taken advantage of the colors in this deck, I just wanted to open up this conversation, and I would love to, you know, chat with some of you in the comments. And I did put the cover for this video up on For the Love of Cards on Facebook. And so if you want to chat there, I can chat there with you. So here we go with pinks, purples, and reds. What does this mean? So first thing that comes to mind is blood. And then the second thing is the heart. So we have heart, blood connection. We have heart chakra. So heart chakra is not always the color pink. And depending on the shade of pink, it's going to represent different levels of intensity. And with red, I'm going to go way back down to the root chakra. Same with that color brown. So I'm going to be looking at fears. I'm going to be looking at survival issues. But with the sweeter colors of pink, I'm going to be looking at unconditional love and trust in relationship, and really that whole sense of being in right relationship through gratitude and unconditional love, and being completely healthy in that regard. So here we have quite a red card, and I believe this is the 9. It's the 9 of Cups. Why is it so red? Red to me is, you know, not the positivity that I would bring in with this 9 of Cups. 9 of Cups, and if it's going to be taken in like the excess version, like I think Osho Zen calls it laziness. There's a lot of decks actually that portray this card in that aspect of, you know, not only be careful what you wish for, but too much emotion, too much, you know, it can be a card of too much water and everything that's associated with water. But I'm not quite sure why this card is red. So that's a question perhaps for you and for me to contemplate over time. But then we have, you know, a lot of real sweetness happening here. And we also have some swords cards here, which is surprising. So we have this pink and this kind of, I don't know, it feels much like the light yellow colors. It feels like there's some optimism. And even though we probably have 8 of Swords and yeah, we have the 8 and 10 here, right? So 2 really, really challenging cards. This is the predominant color of the suit of Swords, which is this purpley blacky color. But in the 8 and the 10, we see this pink sky in the distance. I'm just thinking about the sailor sky, but let's not bring in too many things. So we know that if we take off the blindfold, we're going to get a completely different perspective, and the sky is definitely going to lighten up. It's a choice. We can turn inward and we can find our answers by, you know, learning to listen within. But the swords have not created a cage. This cat can move forward at any time. And if she chooses to turn around and look at the pink sky, and that brings her a sense of love, you know, we can associate pink very much with love, not just unconditional love. That might be a reason to, you know, to take off this blindfold. And here, while this is a very painful ending, what we see in the distance is a lot of light, right? And a lot of connection to heart. So that's actually really beautiful. And we'll look at all 14 of the Swords cards in a moment. We'll do that one next. But I just wanted to kind of just get a general feel of what this pink and purple is about. So we see it in the Ace of Cups. But we also have the green here, this wateriness. So that makes perfect sense, bringing in connection between the element of water and the element of the other color for the heart chakra. So that's a really beautiful, that's an easy one to kind of look at. And here's one here too, the Lover's card. So we have all these, what I want to go to here with this all of these blendings of colors. So we're talking about pink. So the angel represents that unconditional love. So the light pink for me, when we're looking at like rose quartz and things like that, is that sense of mother, and that no matter what we do, we will always be loved, we will always be held, and that may or may not be represented by a mother incarnate. It might have to, be with our angels and with the Earth Mother. And so we have that unconditional love surrounded here with the angel. We have this beautiful balance, right? We have that solar energy, so the Father, Divine Father. So we have the Divine Father, the Divine Masculine, and we also have this balance between the green and the pink. So in the heart chakra, we have this range of color with everything that we need to work through. And I know in some traditions there's other colors that are brought in, but I think it's really beautiful that we have that whole range here showing the balance. And the rabbits are different colors. The bunnies are different colors, which also makes, perfect sense. And it really makes this a card about of balance. And often people use this card for big decisions, right? If this comes up, there's a big decision that has to be made. And so making sure that when you move toward that decision, that it is, you've thought about how this is going to affect the balance of your life. So this one is done really, really well. Okay, so let's just have a look here at what else remains, because I don't want to talk about every single card in the deck. That's so cute. So we have the Knight. So this is the Knight of Cups. Here's the Empress. And I believe that's the King of Cups, the Page of Cups. Let's just sort them into suits. So Cups, Cups, Major, Cups, Major, Cups, 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 Major, and Cups. And then we had Major and Cups. Okay, so that means that some of the cup cards a number of the cup cards are not this pinky purple color. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 8 cups fall into the pink. And then we have 4 majors that have this color here. So let's talk about the Magician, the Empress, and the Wheel. Now there's quite a range of colors here. Again, this is a card, right, that's really important to understand how not only time, but I was going to say how time is a construct of this 3-dimensional reality. And so the whole flow of moving through everything that we need to move through in this lifetime is a balancing game. It's about being, remaining as close to the center of the wheel as we can so we don't get whipped around. It's like those merry-go-rounds at the playground, right? If you want to hold on for dear life and you love being whipped around, that's fine, but it's a lot calmer and a lot easier to move through change if you stay closer to the center and you hang on, if you hang on to the inner wheel. And so this card with these 2 colors here, much like I talked about in the Lover's card, really is a beautiful display of the balance. So much light and love and positivity. And the Empress card, we also have the connection to the earth. So we have the wheat down here. I think this one's done really well. Very easy to read. She looks very optimistic. And then the Magician. So why so much pink and purple in the Magician? And why the roses? That's a really, really interesting question. So why do we have that sense of, there's so much love. There's also a higher level frequency here of the purple. So when I see a lot of purples, I'm going to be looking at the crown chakra and the connection to divine energy. And so bringing in divine energy. And so he is, so with the Magician, I usually think of him as very practical. So we can all access this. Very different than the High Priestess energy. And she wasn't, I believe, didn't have a lot of purple, right? She was that dark brown color. So he seems to be, in this artist's mind, channeling a lot of energy from above. And also notice how his feet are not connected to the ground. He's levitating. He's actually off the ground. So this is quite an evolved magician, right? Definitely some serious divine connection here. In the cup cards, so there we have the page. And we have that connection to water. And there's your knight. So your quartz are very pink in the sky, but the bottom of the court card is quite different. And then there's your ace. We talked about the ace. This one is really cool. I also like how this one is done. And we have, so there's been several cards where we have this kind of balance of green and pink. And when I think of the Four of Wands, I really think of, sorry, not the Four of Wands, the Four of Cups. We're talking about a tremendous amount of sadness. And sometimes turning in is not a bad thing. It can be very healing if you have support, if you have tools to work through this. Sometimes it can just lead to depression. And I know a keyword that a lot of people use in their guidebooks is depression for this card. But the green also represents the aspect of grief, which is a really big one when we're talking about working through the energy of the heart chakra. And so when I see all this green here, although it's a very beautiful and peaceful card, really going to focus on the grief. And we have this tiny little bit of pink up here. So this shows a tremendous imbalance to me in the energy of the heart chakra. Here we have the Two of Cups, the Three of Cups, which you would expect, you know, with what's going on in this deck to have a lot of pink. We have the lighter pink here, lots of optimism, very bright passion, right? So we have passionate red here, which kind of makes me think of the heart, you know, pumping really fast. And then look at all the colors in this Eight of Cups. And it feels very gold at the front and very purple at the back with the pink in between. And so you can see that kind of movement toward the purple. And we have the moon here, which is really cool. So we've got this kind of, moon is also connected to the waters, to the divine feminine, and to just in general to the Suit of Cups. So in some decks, the person, the animal, is moving toward the sun. In this one, they're moving toward kind of this purpley frequency, and also we're moving toward mother, toward the moon. So that's really cool. I like how that is drawn. Let's have a look at the Suit of Swords now. So here's the two that we've already had a look at with a little bit of pink at the top. And then here are 8 more. So there's 8 more cards. And then here's the other 4. So the other 4 are here. So these 4 definitely have more of a greeny blue. Let's have a look at these 8 darker cards here. So it's either nighttime, or it's raining, or it's cloudy, or we're moving through some kind of stormy weather here. So I'm sure this is the night. So we have the Knight of Swords moving through this kind of stormy energy. And with the Knight of Swords, I don't necessarily see that frequency, but the artist has chosen that to make this suit quite dark. And if we're going to work with the Suit of Swords in that darkness, then the kind of questions we're going to ask the querent are going to be quite different from a deck that has it full of feathers and lightness and air and wind and leaves and things like that. So again, much to my surprise, this is quite a moody deck. Not only all those greens and blues that we looked at a few moments ago, but also the Suit of Swords is super moody and super dark. So the lightness of the pink and the lightness of the yellow are really important to kind of bring all this into balance. Right, here's the page. So not quite as dark as the Knight, but very similar. You can just kind of see. And again, if you're going to play it kind of like a storyboard, you really want to watch how these colors interact with each other. And then we have a very RWS Three of Swords. And we have the water here. So this is quite a beautiful card. I love this too here. So she has the water behind her, and there's this kind of deep connection to the emotions. So perhaps also we have the moon here. So this is quite an emotional decision that needs to be moved through, and I may speak to that. She's also happens to be wearing pink. So we can bring in the element of the heart. We have the Nine of Swords here. I love this fabric. We see this kind of design, this pattern on certain floors, as well as the some of the blankets and cloths and things. So if you are interested in fabric art and you know something about designs and this kind of pattern, then this is called something else that you might want to look at. I'm just saying. All right, so here we have the scared little kitty at nighttime in the Nine of Swords. And then over here, we have the Four. So in the Four of Swords, we have that time for rest. Beautiful stained glass window here. This is a gorgeous feature of this card, just really supporting the need for space and time and what's the word I'm looking for? Restoration. So remember that this card comes after the Three of Swords, and that there is an indefinite amount of time that's needed to kind of move through that energy. And you can also see that ethereal quality of the air here. And then here's the Ace. And we have that lightness at the bottom, and we have the divine. You know, not every card I'm going to go there, but I do see this kind of divine energy below and moving forth and moving upward with the Ace. And then the Seven. So there's lots of different ways to interpret the Seven. I think the more different guidebooks I've read, the more different kind of decks I've worked with, I'm starting to really kind of feel that there's a lot of layers to the Seven of Swords. So we're nearing the end of the suit. But sometimes through the journey of the swords, there is a lot of release that happens along the way. And sometimes we have, you see, to me, this is a very Four of Pentacles kind of energy. But there's a conscious, look at how he's looking at, or she is looking at these two swords here. There's a reason these two swords have been left behind. There's a deck that I'm bringing to mind where an eagle is flying away with the swords, and some of the swords, I believe one of them is he's let go from his talons. So why is it important to take these ones, and what does leaving these two behind represent? I think the subtleties and nuances in the Seven of Swords in every single deck is it's really cool, and it's a really important thing to bring in. And I've spoken about this kind of energy here. Why is this kind of supportive energy behind? And sometimes we need to take what belongs to us. You know, if we're looking at something like divorce or the breaking up of a business or something like that, we have it can be very, very tricky and challenging. And depending on of course, the cards that are around, this might be, you know, very much in our right to do this. And these two swords standing here seem to be standing for principle, right? They're standing upright, and they're strong, and they're balanced, and they've intentionally been left behind. So please, you know, bring that in. And then, you know, if the purple supports further discussion, then, you know, bring in that purple. The other Four Swords cards have more of a blue or greeny blue energy, and I love this Six. The Six is really, it's just stunning the way the colors come together, and I love the purple water on the right and the green on the left, and it almost looks as if this kitty here has a veil, and this just really, really, so in the Suit of Swords, we're talking about truth. We're talking about the mind. We're talking about learning to speak from our heart. And there's this really important connection of mind and, you know, mind, body, soul, mind, and heart. And this just brings in all of that heart stuff. And You know, why were you fighting? What was the struggle? What was the Five of Swords all about? And here, moving away from it, and not running away from it, but moving right into the green of the heart space and willing to deal with it. So I think that's awesome. And Kelly Bear, if you ever do watch this video, I have to laugh. I loved what she said about this poor little king here with his throne so close to the cliff. Why is his throne there? It's really funny that you say that. I guess I didn't really think about that. Also, the queen, she's also on the edge of the cliff, but she's not facing towards the cliff. So to me, this is like a wall of protection. So something that he has built up. So he's on the top of he's overlooking his people, he's overlooking his land, and for some reason he's built his castle up high and needed that sense of height. And so that to me is that connection to the air, the connection, the element of air to the swords, and that's why he's up high. That's why he's close to the sky. That's why she's close to the sky. And they're on the top of this precipice, which is probably a much larger piece of land where they've built their castle and all of that. All right, so we've had a look at the wands and the swords. We've had a little bit of a look at the cups. And so let's now have a look at the pentacles. The suit of pentacles is quite a mixed bag of color and a little bit harder to interpret. So we definitely have the earthiness in these four cards here. So you get that. We've talked about that. The trouble with this suit is that there's a lot of the bluey green watery energy. I mean, just look at these. These are all but one other card that we'll look at. So all of these have that. We talked about this color before, right? All of this watery blue energy that I would associate with emotion, and a lot of emotion. This one here, maybe not so much. We could probably pull this one in the earthy group, I believe. Yeah, here we have the 9. So we can put her there. I'm okay with that one. But lots of water and moodiness. And even in the 2, let's just look at the 2 that's right on the top. He's balancing on the waves. And I seem to, I know there's other decks that have the 2 of Pentacles, the character moving forward from the ocean. So that can be more of a hearkening to a traditional Rider-Waite-Smith. But it's a lot of water and not a lot of earth. And so I see him all on water, not on the land at all, especially the way this purple is drawn here. And I can't even really bring in the association for the purple with this card. So for me, the color in this one is a little hard to read. We talked about perhaps why there might be, watery color for the queen, because all the queens are associated with the element of water. And then here's your king. So your king is also looking very similar to the queen as far as color goes, and we don't have that sense of fire. So kings associated with fire, you would expect this card to be a little bit more hot. And here we have our it's so funny. How can you not laugh? It's so cute. I actually really like this Knight of Pentacles. The boar here, the fox astride the boar is really, really quite charming. And I think that despite everything I've said, you really have to have a sense of humor and a sense of lightness with this deck. From what I've seen, boars move pretty darn fast, and they can be pretty scary animals. And with the Knight of Pentacles, I see this more as a slow moving creature. And here we have 2 rather fast moving creatures, but perhaps he's the timid one. Perhaps he's the black sheep of the boar clan. This one is really interesting. So in this 8, we have the 8 pentacles on this, what looks like a cement pillar, and then this watery sky in the background. So when I read this, I'm going to bring it in because it's there. How can you not? I can't just read this as a straight up RWS clone deck because of the way it's been painted. And here in the 4 too, right? We've got this very watery, moody sky. We've got this connection to the earth. And you know what? This one looks actually quite balanced. So We have this earth and water balance with the cat, with the land, the city, the castle, right, being exactly halfway between the top and the bottom of the card. So again, this looks exactly like a domino card, and you're going to see what is associated with this side and what is associated with this side. And this is just, it's just really, really fun, right? Your ace is very airy for an Ace of Pentacles, don't you think? I would love to see more greens and I don't know. So there's something about the Suit of Pentacles in this deck for me that is very, very unusual. And here you have the darker color. So this is the only Pentacles that really has that gloomy dark color that we saw predominantly in the Swords. And I guess that would make sense because this is the 5. We have the season of winter and we have the snow. Oh my goodness. They almost look like bats. There's the way they're wrapped up in their capes here. All right, so Pentacles, Swords. I want to pull these 2 cards over. These are 2 cards that really stand out. They are the blue cards of the deck, 100% blue. And we have the World and the Hanged Man. So is there any connection to that? Love that the Hanged Man is in front of the moon, or the hanged bat is in front of the moon, because this energy is definitely going to support bringing forth what needs to come forth. So this is a very similar energy to the moon card, but I like that the artist has brought this in early in the deck. So if we look at the hero's journey sequentially, and the moon card is a long, long ways along the way. So this kind of gives me faith. This gives me hope for this little bat here, that he's going to really find some goods to start working with early on in his journey. And just to contrast, there's the moon card, right? So quite a different energy between the hanged bat, the hanged creature, and the moon card. But anyway, my question was about these blues, and what does blue represent? Blue is throat chakra. Blue is truth. Blue is really, really finding that authenticity in your voice, in your words, and finding that, what I want to say, when your words and your thoughts and your actions meet, that's what blue is about for me. And so if we can learn about it, if we can discover it in this card, and then by the time we get to the World card, we can live it, we can be it, right? This is where thought, words, and actions are in complete alignment. So that's one of the things I see from the blues. All right, let's have a look at these last 6 cards here. There may be some cards we haven't touched on, but we'll do a quick reading when I'm done with these, and maybe they will appear. This is really a really interesting exercise, and I have done this with some other decks. And when color really plays into a deck, I think for me it's just so important to pay attention to. I love the mole here. He is, or they are, it's such a beautiful energy. And the way that this one is drawn is quite different than the other ones we see here, because we have this beautiful balance between white and black. So we have the ha and the ta, right? The yin and the yang energy in balance, and the traditional imagery. And also there's this real sense of focus on the journey, right? He's looking toward the light. He's looking toward where he's stepping. And it is, this retreat is really, really intentional. So, and also a very cute creature. So that helps. So we have the moon, we have death, 5 of Cups, and the Tower, and the Devil card. So we'll have a look at these. Let's just pull out the Cups card, because the other ones are all majors. So this is the only Cups card that's really dark. So in the Pentacles, it was the 5, and in this one, it's the 5 as well too. We have a little bit of green here. So let's just look at the body language. The rabbit, the bunny, is looking towards the 2 full cups, so acknowledging them, but it appears that moving in this direction. So there's a lot of little subtle things you can look at here, and if this green is associated with another green that's going to help you talk about the feelings and the heart or the grief or whatever's being processed, I think that's really cool that that little bit of green is at the top of the card. But also really important that this bunny is acknowledging the 2 full cups. Okay, let's get the lightning out of there. These 2 cards. So Death and Devil. Really, really interesting. Do you remember I said that the Emperor looks terrified? And why was the Emperor looking so terrified? Well, if this is the Emperor here, and this is the Hierophant, perhaps this is the Hierophant presiding over the death of the Emperor. I don't know, just a random thought. Maybe he saw his impending death. But the way this whole card is drawn, there's so much beautiful symbolism here. I love that we have the rising sun. So there's that sense of hope. We also have these, these 2 pillars, which are important symbols in a lot of cards, right? So we see it in the moon card. We see the pillars in the moon card. We see the pillars in the High Priestess in lots of different places. So that right and that left and that balance, that acknowledgement of balance is so really important. But I think this kind of brings in a sense of humor. And just in case you're wondering, I'm pretty sure this is the death of the Emperor. Okay. So maybe a little bit of sense of humor there from the deck creator. This is the Devil card. So we got lots of RWS stuff going on here, and it would be nice if we had a little bit more water here, because this card to me represents the complete, the real challenging aspect of the 2nd chakra, which is the element of water. And instead we hear it's very, very dark and very, very gloomy, and we can't really see what's in the background, or we can't really see where we are. We do have a pentacle overhead, which is really, really interesting. Not exactly the same sculpt, but very similar to the Death card. So I think it's unfortunate that this card is all completely in the dark. Let's have a look at the Tower and see what we can pick up here. The way the lightning is drawn here is almost cartoon-like. Even the color of the lightning and the way it kind of pierces through this dark sky. But this is a very RWS kind of card. There's something that I wanted to bring in. And just have a look at, because I think with the Death card, you know that the ending is coming, right? This is an ending. This is a stage that you've been fully aware of is about to arrive. But often the lightning, the Tower card can be a little more unexpected. Sometimes it can almost feel like the rug has been pulled out underneath you. But if you can rise above and move through the process, it is so very, very important for you. And one of those things where, if you weren't able to handle it, it probably wouldn't have happened. But nevertheless, it feels very, very dramatic. So this is a very dark shade of card. So here's your dark cards. Here's the Five of Pentacles again. And here's the Swords cards again. So just giving you an idea about the shades of darkness in this deck, right? So we have lots of a variety of night sky and different weather patterns. So while I am shuffling the deck, while I'm shuffling the cards, I'd really like you to have a think about some of the things I've mentioned about color and working with color in decks. And if there's a takeaway from this, so let's kind of bring that into focus. And of course, if there's something else that needs to come forward, it will come forward in the reading. And if you have another specific question, then, bring that to mind at this time. Also, I did trim these cards, and I often find that after trimming cards, if you don't do it perfectly, you cannot continue to riffle shuffle well. But these ones definitely do still riffle shuffle fairly well. All right, cutting the cards with my left hand. What do we need to know about the color? Kind of perfect, hey? I guess what is coming forth for me now is the integration of all of the things that I've talked about, plus everything else that you have learned along the way of your journey. I see this about really not only picking up on the symbolism, but this card, of all the cards in the deck, has so many different colors and so many different layers to it. And so as we read, if we can take our time with readings and allow the layers to peel away. You know, you might not see something on a particular day because you don't need to see it. But on other days, all of these layers will start to reveal themselves, and it's really important to allow the things that you haven't seen before to be seen. What I want to say is that you shouldn't feel bad if you haven't noticed something on a card before. And it's not wrong. The readings that you've done previously are not wrong. It's just that now, in this moment, in this time, all of these layers are coming forth. All of these layers are revealing themselves. Ooh, there's a Chariot, which we didn't talk about. All right, so my question was about what can we learn about color, and is there anything also that that I didn't discuss that maybe needs to be mentioned here? So the Chariot in this deck is really, really interesting. The choice of colors here, and the fact that we do have reins, which is something that I always look at because not every deck are the animals reined. So there is a sense of control that is part of this card, right? So if there are no reins, then that really speaks in a completely different direction. And we have this very earthy color here that we saw in some of the pentacles, right? That browny green color as well as the blue. And this does not appear to be connected in any way to this card. Other than that, we have two major cards and a minor card, so that is important. But there is, to me, a real kind of disconnect between this message and this message. So this to me looks like charging off in a completely different direction and not acknowledging what I said about this card. It feels like charging away from discomfort. It feels like, yeah, that's what it feels like to me. And here we have the Seven of Cups. So what does the Lover's card between the Seven of Cups and the Chariot, how can I possibly tie that all together? There's a lot of decisions that we need to make as readers, and you do not have to notice everything in every reading. And if you don't, do you ever, when you're doing readings, maybe if you've done a reading for somebody and you're driving away in your car and you think of something after the fact and you think, oh, I wish I had their phone number, or should I call them because I just realized something I didn't say. That happens to all of us. And I think what's important is you shared what needed to be shared in that moment at that time. And perhaps the querent was not ready for that information. So you mustn't beat yourself up about that. We can't always, this card is about illusion, it's about delusion, but it's also about making good choices. And the good choices are about keeping things in balance and perspective and revealing what needs to be revealed at a certain time in a certain place. And that's perfect for that moment and for that time. And you need to really kind of let go of that. And so allow your readings to flow and to just really be in the moment. And don't be too worried about, I forgot about that traditional association, or, oh, suddenly I said we should talk about color and I didn't talk about color at all. You don't have to talk about color. You don't have to talk about anything. Maybe there's just this story that evolves. And when you, especially when you cut off the keywords and you cut off the borders, you really have this opportunity, right, to create this beautiful storyboard. But I want to go back to my question and also go back to the very first card, because the question is really important. And also, the very first card is the most important. And these two cards here help to clarify and to kind of bring in that energy. So, my question was about color in readings. And is there anything about color in readings that I missed? Or is there something more that I can share with you? I think I've already said this in a different way, but what I see here is that there's a lot of different directions to go. And the most important thing is to act and to move forward, right? Which is what the Chariot's about. It's about moving forward and stepping forward and not pausing in silence and just really allowing that to flow. But you do not have to talk about color, right? There's so many different choices we have and different things that we can pick up on. And sometimes the very best readings are just a few words, right? You don't have to talk for 30 minutes or even 15 minutes. Sometimes one simple sentence is all you need to bring comfort and clarity to the querent. So thank you very much for watching, and I really look forward to your questions and comments below. As always, stay well and namaste.